Hello, America and all the surrounding continents. Y'all know what time it is. It is the Virgo verdict. I am one of your hosts, Tracy Ricks. Got my homeboy Sherrod with me. Sherrod, say hey to the people.
Hey to the people.
Um, so we got some good topics for you today. A good
Sure
topic
do.
for you today. Um, again, y'all know what we do. We get our topics from the socials mostly and life experience. So today we're going to deviate from couples conversation that we usually have. And we are talking about mother-daughter relationships. A while ago, I watched a post or read a post, and it posed a question, why do mothers hate their daughters? I cannot relate, but I can contribute to the mother-daughter conversation. So apparently, mothers and daughters be having issues, I guess, in the same way that fathers and sons may. Um, but we got an article to let you know what a mother wound is, because apparently this mama's out here creating wounds for their daughters.
Yes.
And we got a video, and we want to chop it up about that. And honestly, this topic has kind of opened my eyes to some things, because apparently there are 5 ways, and maybe there are more, but we're going to talk about the 5 ways that mothers tend to wound or create these wounds in their daughters. And then when I looked at the 5 mother wounds, I was like, oh, maybe I've been affected by this too, and just had no idea, no place to put these feelings, or no title to define these feelings. So anyway, we're about to get into it. So we're gonna play the video first,
Yep.
and then we're gonna talk about what's in the video, and we also have another article that we are going to discuss bearing the same topic. So here is the video.
This is a big one
It's a big one.
because our mother is our first relationship. I mean, it's the first voice you hear in the womb. And so your mother or the mother figure in your life gives you a sense of connection, value, and safety. And those
Or
things
not.
or not, right? They are the source of that. And whatever comes of that, we internalize as a truth. And so the wound cuts deep also because it is the mother-daughter. I see the woman that I should be or could be or might not
Or
ever be
was,
or
you know?
was in them. And so it cuts very, very deep. And there are 5 areas where mothers wound. Personality. A lot of times it's just a personality difference. This was a struggle with me and my daughter to recognize that there's something in our personalities that are fighting that is keeping my daughter from getting what she needs. The second is my past. You mentioned where in my past as a mother did pain come from that I'm still carrying. Third is power. When we fail to make the peaceful transition of power from us to our daughter at the proper time and pace, there is a wound. Prioritization of need, whose needs get put first, and then finally, I call it the plus 10. Later on, when you look back, will you have handled this crisis in a way that your daughter will remember well? When we drop the ball in any of those areas, there's usually a wound, and it lasts a long time.
So, y'all, just to recap, the 5 wounds: personality wound, which can be a personality difference between mother and daughter, a past wound. So a mother's past can affect the kind of relationship she has with her daughter. Then there's a power wound, I guess, that um, speaks to the power struggle between mother and daughter. There is a priority wound. Who's Where does the priority lie when it comes to paying attention? Is the priority on the mother first, or is it on the daughter as the child? And then later on down the line, are you going to look back at how you have been as a mother? The plus 10 is what the lady calls it. And are you going to look back on what you did as a mother and be pleased or take responsibility for what has happened in the relationship with your daughter? So let's get into it, y'all. So, Sharad, you want to do the article?
Yeah, it's short. It's really short.
Okay. So we got an article, y'all, also to support the video that we just watched.
Yeah. Okay. It's an article from Psychology Today. Sherry Gaba, LCSW, Addiction and Recovery. She's the author. And it says, The Mother Wound, How Our Relationships with Our Mothers Affect Our Codependency. Now, the mother wound is not a typical term you may hear in a counseling or therapy session, but it may be a factor that is influencing your relationship with partners. While the mother wound is most often associated with daughters, it is possible for sons to also have mother wound factors that influence their relationships. Now, understanding the mother wound. The best way to think of the mother wound is a loss or a lack of mothering. This is typically a deficit in the mother-daughter or mother-son relationships that is passed down through generations, and it is a reflection on how we have experienced parenting and how we parent. While not a specific diagnosis, it is a way of looking at how current codependency behaviors may be linked to missing elements in the past. Children who are raised by alcoholics, drug-addicted mothers, or mothers who have mental health conditions, either undiagnosed or untreated, may struggle into their own adulthood. However, there are also children who are raised by mothers who do not have these challenges. These are mothers who may provide for the physical needs of the children and even interact with the children in a positive way, but simply do not provide the deep love and attention that all children require. They may not have been abusive or neglectful, or they may not have been abusive or neglectful, and they may never have engaged in negativity in their relationships with the children, but they were always distant and less tuned into the emotional needs of their children. Now, the signs of it: the adults dealing with a mother wound often look back on their childhood and can identify issues such as never feeling they had their mother's approval or acceptance, concerns about not being loved by their mother or not being loved as much as other siblings or family members, difficulties in relating to the mother on an emotional level, uncertainty about the relationship with the mother and if it could be lost with a mistake or an accident, always trying to do better or to be perfect to attempt to gain your mother's attention and acceptance. And the last one is feelings of having to protect, care for, or shelter your mother rather than her protecting, caring for, and sheltering you.
Man, y'all. So I love doing these podcasts, not only because it allows me to have conversations with my homeboy, but it also provides a space for me to learn more about me and to grow. So prior to, had not even ever considered a mother wound. So when I look back on the relationship between me and my mother, I never looked at it as anything that I could title, characterize, or put in a box. It was just what happened. It was my mama had me, and then living transpired. So I never looked at it as anything that had to be analyzed or judged or I guess look at it from a position of how it developed me into who I am right now. I only looked at it as my mama's my mama and my childhood was my childhood. But if I'm at all honest, I got several mother wounds. But because of how I view my mother now, I never looked at the things that happened to me as having been wounded by my mother. But I was in many ways. But when I look at my mama now, she's perfect. And not in the literal sense,
Yeah, yeah.
but my mama can do no wrong. She's the best person I know. And I get all of the best parts of me, all of the best parts of me I got from my mother. But because I recognize that she is imperfect in the literal sense, because we all are, I can now address and be honest about the things that happened to me while I was in her care. And me and my mother probably did a lot of growing together that we never talked about. And we did a lot of figuring shit out that we never talked about. We did a lot of getting over the experience that we had with my father, the experience that we had with my siblings. We never talked about those experiences and how they affected us. Um, and it wasn't until I started going to therapy and I started um this desire to know who I am in totality that I had to start examining different parts of my life and how and the roles that they played in this growth process. Here I am 50, almost 53, and I can acknowledge that me and my mother had personality differences when I was younger that affected our relationship. I did not get close. My mother and I are very close. I didn't get close, very close to my mother until I was well into adulthood. Um, my mother is a product of what's called the silent generation. And Sharad, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I also call the silent generation the MLK generation. And they had a different style of parenting. It's far different than what we're seeing now. It was be seen to the kids, be seen and not heard, do as I say, not as I do. I don't give a fuck about your feelings. Now, they didn't ever say that, but I couldn't talk about my feelings when I was a kid.
What they said,
Nobody
what's
ever asked
understood
me.
don't need to be explained.
It don't have to, yeah. Nobody ever asked me how I was doing. Nobody ever asked me, an input or, what was going on. It was almost as if, as a kid back then, you were invisible. You just be a kid and shut the fuck up, or I'm gonna beat your ass. It was, that was parenting back then. We were left alone for long periods of time. We was latchkey kids. We
Well,
did a
I
lot of
wasn't.
raising ourselves.
I
You
wasn't.
weren't?
Man, my mom, man, you know how many chicks I tried to get to the crib, but Miles was there?
So, but wait, was your mom a career woman though?
You know what? My mom hurt herself on her job, and so she couldn't work
Okay.
anymore. My pops, before they eventually, my pops literally divorced. My mom and pops literally divorced after we graduated.
Oh, okay.
So
See, for me, it was different because my mom was working. She was always working and she was always in school. So, and my mom was deeply affected by what had happened in her past,
okay,
which retarded her ability to connect with us on any real level, any real emotional, spiritual, or deep level at the time.
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily say that there was a power struggle between me and my mother because I was keenly aware and in tune with my mother, even though I did not realize it at the time. But I always had the need or the sense to take care of her because I recognized that she was not living a happy life. And, there were things that were happening in our family with my dad that probably greatly affected her. But I think more than that, or maybe even equal to that, was the life that she experienced before she became my mother. And that deeply affected her ability at the time to be my mother in a way that I needed her to be. But when you're a kid, you don't know how to articulate that. You think this experience that you're having with your parents is a normal thing.
It's normal. Yeah.
And it's dysfunction and whatever the opposite of normalcy is. But you think that that's normal because that is the life that you are currently living. And you
But you know
don't
what?
know
But
that other people are not having this experience in their households. Um, Also, I was not a priority for my mother because she had this deeply emotional, depressing, she was in this deeply emotional, depressing state for most of my formative years. So there were needs that I had that were not being met, but it didn't look like the needs that you that you think about when you think about a kid needing stuff. So back then, you you would see the commercials about the kids starving in Africa, and then you would hear stories about kids being abused and neglected in a certain kind of way. And those things didn't look like what was happening in my life. So it to me it didn't look like neglect. It didn't look like abuse. It didn't look like what it was because we still had clothes that we were putting on our backs. We lived in a nice big pretty house. We were educated, but I was grossly neglected though. But I didn't know it because it was dressed up.
right.
We looked the part, but in our little world, shit was fucked up in a way that nobody else knew. And I was always the kid that was trying to keep it together. So because I was intelligent, people thought I was okay. And I wasn't. But I didn't know I wasn't okay. I was just living trying to figure shit out, and I was trying to be um as less of a burden to my mother as I could be because I was keenly aware of what she was going through, and I didn't want to be another layer on top of what I knew was already there. Even though I didn't have a grand understanding of what it was, I wanted to love her in a way um that I wasn't a burden. And I recognized from doing this research that neglected children
Yeah.
tend to do that.
Yeah.
They tend to take care of the parent that is neglecting them. So,
Yeah.
the roles get switched. So, because I didn't know how to navigate the feelings of, hey, I'm here, I need attention, then the roles got flipped and I gave the attention to the parent, which is what I needed then. So, and now me and my mother can, we have conversations about the last point, the plus 10 point, about how um we have all been affected by what happened back then.
Okay.
And then, recently stuff came to light. I discovered my daddy wasn't my daddy. So, there are all these things that happened that now I can talk about, now I can understand, now I know how to navigate. But when you are a kid, you have no understanding of these things. You just know you're going through some shit. You don't even know what the fuck to call it. And because of the generation that my parents were in, I couldn't go to my parent like, hey, I need to talk about this. I never felt like I could talk to my mother. I talk to my mother about everything now, but as a kid, when I needed her, when I needed conversations, there were none. I made a lot of mistakes because I didn't have the kind of relationship with my mother that I needed. But I had to also understand that parents they can only love you and they can only handle you. They can't give you what they don't have, is what I'm
Right.
saying.
Or they were never shown.
Right. So my mother did the best that she could do with what she had at the time. And additionally, in addition to being my mother, she was also a person with a whole life outside of being my mother that she herself was trying to navigate. My mother became a mother at 25. And I know who I was at 25. I didn't know shit at 25. I didn't know shit at 20 nothing. I was still, you know, still a
Yeah,
fucking kid.
navigating
Yeah,
life, like figuring it out.
willy-nilly. Yeah, you're new into adulthood. They tell you you're an adult when you turn 18, but you're still a kid and you still don't know shit. So by the time she was 30, she had 3 children. I remember being 30. I I couldn't have done, well, I didn't have the desire to do what my mother was grown in her 20s, like grown. She was a different kind of grown than I was in my 20s. And then having the parents that she had, my grandmother was hard on my mother and life with her. So I remember asking my mom why she married my dad. And she was like, shit, he was the lesser of the two evils. Now, mind you, my father had a mental problem. So if he was the lesser of the two evils, then that means my grandmother was a motherfucker. She left my grandmother's house to go with my father, or the man who I thought was my father at the time. So she had mother wounds. She had mother wounds
Yeah.
that um that planted themselves in her and then became seeds for the mother wounds that I received from her.
Right.
So if she doesn't get her mother wound healed, how then can she have a healthy relationship with her daughters? It's
Especially
you can't.
if it's untreated, undiagnosed,
Yeah,
because like you said, back in the day, it was just more so our normal life was different than what a child's normal life is now. Like you said,
absolutely.
you come in a room, you are to be seen and not heard.
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't get me wrong, I believe in a lot of ways that we need to adopt those ways now because these kids right now, they actually think they're on your level, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And that's a whole new topic or whatever, but I had to tell a young lady,
Yes.
your kids are your equal. I'm like, hell, ain't no motherfucker that I gotta pay for my equal.
Right.
You know what
And
I'm
I
saying?
am a proponent of sending children out of the room when grown people are talking
Right.
because you're not here yet. You a kid, still be a kid.
Yeah.
You're being exposed to too much when you are in adult
And
conversations,
look what's
when you
happening
are in the
now.
presence of adults.
Look
I
what's
didn't hear
happening
you.
now.
What you say?
Look what's happening now. Teen
Yeah.
pregnancy is exploding because we're exposing them to things that most adults can't even handle. And
Yeah.
we're giving it to them at 10, 11, 12, and we're telling these kids, "Oh no, just, you know, Gentle parenting, figure it out on your own. Just
No,
well, why are you a parent then?
no.
I'm looking at, because my mom is one of those women that's like mean, like wake up mean, go to sleep mean, you know.
Okay.
And she's one of those people that she'll help you with everything. You know what I'm saying? If you ever need her, she's there.
Mm-hmm.
But the things that come out of her mouth, will cut you like a knife, right?
Mm-hmm.
And growing up, my pops used to say, hey, my mom just did not know how to be happy, right? But
Mm.
in my
He
mind,
said that out
and
loud.
yeah, yeah. Well, not growing up. I was older because I chose a side.
Mm-hmm.
I think like most children choose mom's side. Mom is the
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable one. She's the one crying. She's the one complaining. Pop's the one like,
Yeah.
"Man, shut that shit up. That's bullshit." And my old dude wasn't the kind of person that's gonna explain to you shit. It's just what I
Right.
said it was. Either
Same.
listen or
Yes.
don't, and if you don't, here's the consequences. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I got older, I got married, that I understood my father. And the
Because now
funniest
you
thing,
are in the position. You were
oh
in
my
the
God.
position that your
Hey
father
man,
was in.
let me tell you something. My old dude told me, because we didn't talk for like almost 20 years. And
Mm.
he told me, man, my aunt died. And ironically, it was my mom that said, "Hey, there was your father and them are at the hotel on Van Dyke. I think it was the Best Western back in the day. Best Western,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So they had the whole floor. So my brothers and I, we shot over there, and that was the first time we had seen my pops in years, right? And we got to talking, kicking it, and he started letting us know some stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
we kick it, okay, exchange numbers. My pops leave and, go back to South Carolina. So one conversation I was having with him, and he said, man, wow, you've really grown, man. It's like, I'm proud of you. He said, because honestly, I thought you'd be dead, to be honest with you, right?
Wow.
And I was like, and he told me at that time, he was like, um, and honestly, at that point, I don't even think I would have cared.
Mm.
It was our relationship was volatile, right? And I know we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
mother wound, but I'm coming back around to it. It's that we turned our back on our father and chose my mother's side. My
Mm-hmm.
mom was feeding us all the information, shit
Mm-hmm.
that we probably shouldn't have known, shouldn't have been
Mm-hmm.
involved with. And my father had always said, you protect your mother from everybody and anybody, including me. All right,
Mm.
Pops, that's what you said. You told 3 boys this. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, but as I got older, I'm realizing some of that some things I saw going with my mom and pops, that was my mother's fault. I
Mm-hmm.
remember my mom just sitting there. I mean, my pops just sitting there chilling, minding his own business, and she started up with him.
Mm.
And I was like, and I remember listening to my pops one day because I was on the steps, you know, and I'm just sitting. I don't know why the hell I was there, but my old dude was drinking in the living room by himself, and my pops was one of those guys. When he got his head right, he just became mellow and super cool, like
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't no. My pops don't curse, and he wasn't that kind of guy. But when he got his head mellow, he just became even more cool, right? So my mom came
Mm-hmm.
yelling and fussing at him or whatever because he's drinking in the house. And then my mom, when he walked out, he was like, all I remember him saying was like, "Damn, I can't even drink in my own house." He's like the bill, and he talking to himself now. He was like, "The bills, the house I pay the bills in, I can't drink in this house." So, he and I got to talking one day and had this conversation. So he tells me, he says, "You know what? I might have cursed you with your wife, your ex-wife." He says, "Because I wanted you to know what I was going through. And I prayed for it. And we bust out laughing. I was like, man, you did this. But it wasn't until I got married that I understand what he was going through. Having your children turn on you. You give love, you do all this, and or what you think is love, because that's what you know. So you give everything you think you have to give, because hey, this is what you were taught. His father wasn't there. His father left. So he became the man in the house in elementary school. So he had to drop out of school, right? So my pops, all he knows how to do is just be responsible, right? And all he knows is this is what a man does. Like he says, one day he's like, where's your lawnmower at? I was like, I pay somebody to cut it. He said, every man need their own tools. That's his mentality. So when he told me that, hey, I just wanted you to see what I went through. And I bust out laughing. I was like, well, the Lord answered your prayers. He was on the main line that day. I was like, man, because I understand you wholeheartedly, to have somebody that was always upset about something, it seemed like. Always complaining about something. And that's that's my mother to this day. It's like, for her she'll find the bad even in the good. And it's like, and I've just gotten to the point where, hey, she's 70-something years old. She ain't gonna change. This is just who she is. And she's the only woman that can irk my nerves. You know what I'm saying? Like, as she used to say, you irk my damn nerves. Well, she's the only woman that can just really be like, I'll never say anything bad to her. And I'd be like, you know what, Mom? I'll talk to you later. I'm out of here, And it's like, I sit back and I say, man, the black community has lived a lie. When we watch the Obamas and all these athletes get out here and they speak about their mothers and this and that and the other, they're just flawless. They don't do no wrong. They don't neglect. They don't abuse. They don't hurt their children. It's just all love, nurturing. And it's not. That's a lie. It's a bold-faced lie. Because a lot of women,
we gotta start speaking the truth.
Yeah, and a lot of mothers are not nurturing.
It's a lot of ancient mamas out here. But I think, Sherrod, that is rooted in that don't put our business out in the street shit. Whatever happens in the house stays in the house. The house is like Las Vegas. And that's what I mean when I was saying, we thought that our normal was normal.
But it was
we didn't
normal.
talk about it.
But it
was for us.
It was our normal, but
it was our normal. But because we didn't talk about it, and that's how a lot of children get abused for years. They might not have physical scars, but shit is going on at home.
They got mental and spiritual wounds.
Absolutely, emotional wounds. So because we've been taught, we've been conditioned, you don't tell nobody what's happening in this house. Yep. It's nobody's fucking business what happens in the house. And then plus, there are things that are happening to you as a child that you don't realize are not right.
Right.
Until you get older. And some people come to some kids come to the realization, before others, because I think, I have to think back to my brother. And our father ruled our house, with an iron fist. And I remember at 12 years old, my brother had enough. So, I was watching a show the other day, and a lady said that innocence is often, I think, corrupted by cruelty, or children lose their innocence when they're introduced to cruelty. And I think it's true because, you know, we're kids. And then something happens that disrupts the freedom that comes with just being a kid. And typically, that disruption comes in some form of a cruel act imposed upon you by an adult. It's either physical abuse, which is rooted in cruelty and pain. It's either emotional abuse, which is also rooted in in pain, cruelty and pain. There's sexual abuse. When kids are introduced to those things, all of them rooted in cruelty, that is the moment where their innocence is gone. That is the moment where their perspective of the world instantly changes. Because I remember being innocent, and I remember just being a kid, and I remember being happy and carefree and audacious. And then something happened to make all of that shit change. Childhood was not the same anymore. A wound had been created. I didn't know what to call it, but I knew that something was different. I did not enjoy childhood at all. There was a period probably from the time I was born to maybe 6 years old that life was grand. But from 6 to whenever I had my spiritual awakening, which happened in my 30s, but you know, like from 6 to I guess 18, I was ready to be an adult because from 6 to 18, life had blew up, for me and our family, and shit was happening. Like we didn't have because I would say from the time I was born to 6 years old, we had a perfect life. For me as a kid, everything was great. And then shit just went fucking crazy and life really started to happen. And I really started to see my parents for who they were. But I spent most of my time with my mother. So most of the influence imposed upon me happened because of my mother. Me and my mother spent a lot of time together, and I'm a Virgo, Sherrod, and I'm sure you this way too. I don't know. I'm making an assumption, but I paid a lot of attention to her. But it was a natural thing for me to do. I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna be paying attention to mama. No. It was just a natural thing for me to do. I was always very observant. I know I talk a lot now, y'all, on this podcast, but I'm not really a very vocal person. I don't talk a lot in real life. And I didn't as a kid. I was one of those people, and I still am to this day, always very observant. I learned by watching.
Yeah.
So I learned about my mother just by watching her. And because I watched her so much, I neglected to pay attention to me because I knew that my mother was in pain. So, and I still do this now, even though she's no longer in pain, I still am keenly aware of my mother's presence on the planet. I will do anything for my mother. I will. Like, I'm so keenly in tune with her that I know things about her that my siblings don't know. And I do things for my mother based on what I know about her as a person. So every time I go and see my mother, I bring her something. I bring her things that she enjoys. She loves dragonflies. I make all kind of stuff. I do shit for my mother just because of the experience that we have had together. We did a lot of growing together, but separate. But it was just me and her in the house at one period of time. Um, she was going through shit. And of course, I was going through shit because I'm a fucking kid and I'm trying to be a teenager and all that shit. And I did not have my mother. She was physically there, but that's it. We had food in the refrigerator. I got to ride to school every day. But as far as a deep having somebody to take care of me, and I'm not talking about just paying the bills, I'm not talking about tuition, I'm talking about um being paid attention to and really giving care. I didn't have that. I was so like I had to figure all the shit out, Sharad, because my father had gone to prison, my sister was out of the house, and my brother had gone to prison. And because of the things that had happened that were tied to why they had gone to prison, it deeply affected my mother, and she retreated into herself. And it's what she needed to do for her at the time.
She was in
But I
survival
was still
mode.
left. You said what?
It seemed like she was in survival mode.
She was, and she had to be. And for some reason I understood this. But neglected children always do. They because you're being neglected by a parent, but you also want to protect your parents. You want
That's
to
this
give
last
them
part.
what you are not receiving.
The signs of the mother wound, feelings of having to protect, care for, or shelter your mother rather than her protecting, caring for, and sheltering you.
That is
So,
exactly. I remember. So my brother had committed a crime, and it was a violent crime, and he committed this crime in our house. We were woken up at like 2 o'clock in the morning by a team of police in our house. We ain't heard shit, Sharad. We don't sleep. We didn't sleep hard, but the way that it happened was just a tripped out thing. But anyway, I remember, so our house was a crime scene. And I remember thinking, I don't know nothing about the law and what you supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do in a crime scene. But while the police were still in our house, I began to clean up the crime scene because I didn't want my mother to have to do it. And I remember looking over her. She was sitting in a chair in the living room. And I can't imagine as a mother what she was going through at this time. Her son had committed a violent crime in her house. And so I remember her, just the look of despair. And I wanted to save her from that. But all I could do was clean up the crime scene. So that's what I did. So when the second group of investigators came, they were like, the fuck? I'm like, shit, cleaned up because I didn't want my mama to have to do it. Look at her. But I was a kid too. I was, what, 13? 12 or 13? So they couldn't say nothing to me because I was a kid. I didn't know what the fuck. I didn't know that you don't fuck with the crime scene.
right.
So, but it was that kind of thing, Sharad. It was always because I know what my mother had been through. And as a kid, I don't even know how I had this understanding. I just knew that she needed to be taken care of. And while I was there, I wanted to do that. So, yeah, but I did not address these things until I was almost 40 years old. And I didn't know until recently that these were mother wounds. Because I just felt like I had a life. I had these life experiences. Things had happened to me. I went on a spiritual journey. I got therapy. I repaired the relationship with my mother. Even though I wouldn't call it a repair, I established. We developed a different kind of mother-daughter relationship that I'm grateful for today. But I didn't know that what I had done, what I was doing was repairing my mother wounds. I didn't realize that I had mother wounds. I had considered all the wounding that had been done by the experiences that I had with my father. But I didn't realize, and I knew that my mother had neglected me, but I understood why. So for me it was okay
Kind of like
because I knew
justified it.
why yeah, I justified it. But justification or not is what it is. It's a wound. I was hurt by my mother. There were things I didn't receive from my mother. There were things that happened to me at the hands of my mother. I cannot romanticize that part of my life because that part of my life is fucked up and a lot of fucked up shit happened because of my mother. And I probably would have never said that out my mouth a few years ago. Because, like I said, I consider my mother the best person that I know, but she's the best person that I know now. She had a lot of growing to do. She had a lot of healing to do. She could not show up as my mother without doing some kind of self work. And that took years. It took years of her in the practice of healing and in the practice of repairing the damage that had been done to her and the damage that she had done to others just by default. And, and it's a trip because I got two other siblings and we all have drastically different lives and we all have drastically different experiences with my mother. Um, their mother wounds are not the same as mine. Well,
Right.
well, they may have the same wounds,
But y'all handled them
but
differently.
we handled them differently and they were inflicted upon us differently.
Right.
Because my sister and my brother did not experience neglect from my mother. Um, my sister was the firstborn, so she got love from everybody. She was the first grandkid. She was always paid attention to. She was always taken care of. She was nurtured. They were tuned in to my sister. And I think they were tuned in and gave her so much of what she needed at the time because shit hadn't fell apart in our home life yet. She didn't escape it unscathed, though. She was still deeply affected too, but in a different way than I was.
Okay.
By the time I came around and my formative years came around, my teenage years came around, my mother had nothing to give me. She was not there. My sister didn't get that. My mama was fully present during her formative years. And then during my brother's formative years, my brother committed a violent crime when he was 15. He was in custody from the time he was 15 until he was 18. He was out for 2 years and then he went to prison for 15 years. So from the time he was 15 till the time he was in his 30s, he was in legal custody. He was being raised and being handled by the police. So by default, his relationship with my mother was different from the relationship that me and my sister had. So then when it came to me, because of all of the shit that had happened up until that point, and again, because of who I am, my mother was like, and she often tells me this, I knew that you were the one that would be okay though. Like she was okay with neglecting me because I was responsible. She was okay with neglecting me because I was level-headed, I was diplomatic, I had, common sense. Out of my three siblings, not that they didn't have common sense, but I moved around in a different way than they did.
Yeah.
Like I have always, even though I'm the baby, I'm the little sister, I've always been the voice of reason. I've always looked at things and analyzed things from a very mature place. So from my mother's vantage point, she could fall back because she knew that I would be all right. But
Right.
I wasn't all right though.
Hey,
I acted like
sometimes,
I was all right and I still had to keep going, but I wasn't all right though.
you know,
And I didn't.
I was
Go
getting
ahead.
ready to say that one part you were saying about you gonna be all right, and the funny thing was the song, the title of Smokey Robinson's song, "Tears of a Clown,"
Mm.
and that was me in high school. You know me, I was the jokester. I always,
Yeah,
but
like I would have never
yeah,
known.
but it
You
was,
you would have thought that everything was good
and you know
because
what?
the way you showed up.
But I'm gonna be honest with you. You know, in high school is when my father and I's relationship really started tanking,
Mm.
and it almost had my first child in 10th grade.
Well,
And the things my father said to me, you know, because she eventually had an abortion, but the thing he said to me was like, to me, was just harsh. Like, dog, where the love at? But when I think back on it as a mature man now, he was
hmm.
telling the truth. But
And how
you
else should he have said it?
right, and it's like, and I know we want people to say things a certain way, but we also have to realize who it is we want that from. My
Hmm.
pops is straightforward. Yo, whoop, 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 whoop. If you want some old watered down sugar coated shit, you got to find another motherfucker to do it. My
Hmm.
mom, my cursing came from my mother, right? Me
Hmm.
being direct came from my father. But my
Hmm.
mom is just one of those people that says whatever she's thinking, it comes up. She doesn't have a
When is your
filter.
mom's birthday?
August 21st. She's a Leo.
She's a Leo Virgo.
So
She on Leo Virgo cusp. Lord.
whatever she thinking. But now here's the funny thing. My mom, I can count on, I can count how many times my mom has ever said, I love you. I can count how many
Mm.
times my mom has ever hugged me, right? My pops, he was affectionate. I'm like, and I sit back and be like, okay, this dude, every night, hey, I love y'all, good, you know, kisses on the forehead, get, you know. Mom was like, good night, and it was like, good night.
My mom is the
You know,
same way.
yeah.
No hugs. My mom was very emotionally hands off. I knew that she loved me, but she
Yeah.
she was not an affectionate person. Um I didn't
No.
start hugging. I didn't my my very first boyfriend, my very first grown-up relationship, his mother is who introduced me to hugs. And I remember the first time she hugged me, I was stiff.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
cause I wasn't used to it. I wasn't used to it. I mean, but now I'm with that hug life, baby. I will hug the shit. I will hug you to death. Like, I'm very much more like, and I credit this my emotional awakening because I was very stoic. Now, when I was in high school, I wore a mask. You know, I was everybody's friend. I was cool with everybody. I always seemed happy go lucky, but I wasn't.
Right.
Um, and I kept things very close to the chest. I had peripheral relationships. I didn't have any deep relationships then. So when I was in my early 20s, when I was 22 years old, I met my lifelong friends, but I was still very, very tight. I only allowed people to get so close to me. And my friend Big Reg, he was like, bitch, you gonna have to open up at some point. Like, God damn, I can't keep carrying these conversations just by myself. And I need to know what you think and how you feel. God damn. I mean, I was really, Sherrod, like, no, I wasn't allowing people to get close. I didn't know how to do it. I did not know how to do it. So my friends, they didn't know much either, but they knew enough that they were like, this is not right. You need you come on now. Give us something. We having a relationship here. And I didn't realize that you know, you had to do that to I didn't realize that relationships were things that needed substance. So when I met my boyfriend's mother, she was very loving, very emotionally forthright. Um, and she started hugging me like she changed my life. She changed my life for the better, and she introduced me to a part of me that was a stranger to me. She introduced me to um she showed me how to express myself with love and compassion and all of that stuff. And I'm grateful to her for that. Even now when I try to hug my mother, she be tight. And I be like, lady, let me love up on you. And I say those words to her because we're able to talk about it now, but my mother wasn't raised with hugs. She wasn't raised with hugs and kisses and I love yous like that. Um, so I give that to her now, whether she wanted or not. And even now though, Shirai, she'll say, hey daughter, I need a mama hug. Like, so not at 80 something, is just now coming to the place where she can ask for what she needs. She never did that before. So yeah, like I see my mother's growth and I'm so very proud of her because she was in a really dark place and as was I. So yeah, like mother wounds are real. But Sherrod, you have to tell yourself the truth about the relationships you have had with your parents.
Yeah.
We want to romanticize this mother son, mother daughter shit.
The Brady Bunch shit.
Yeah, but mamas are people too, and mamas be fucking up, and mamas don't be knowing. Because I thought my mama knew everything. I thought she was superwoman. But then when I discovered that she wanted, that's traumatic. When you discover that your mother is not the person that you in your mind have made her out to be, that causes trauma. That shit will fuck you up. Like, God damn, she is not who I thought. I remember when my perspective of who my mother was changed. And I remember when I saw her for the very first time, and I was a kid when this happened. I didn't know how to navigate that shit, but I remember when it happened. Like, oh, I've had a wrong perspective of this woman. I didn't know how to say that to myself, but I felt it though.
Right.
So, yeah, y'all, mother wounds are real, but you got to tell yourself the truth about your parents. It's not always pretty. It's not. A lot of the time, it's probably going to be more ugly shit that comes up than the pretty shit.
And you know what?
That doesn't mean
And we still gotta
hate your
love them.
mama. Yeah, right. I was just
You
that
know.
don't mean hate your mama. That just means have an understanding, a real, rooted in truth, understanding of what happened. A real account of what happened to you as a kid. That don't mean go back and try to fuck your mama up. That don't mean go back and dig up old shit. Cause shit, the past is in the past. It's not happening anymore. But what it does mean is acknowledging, accepting what has happened to you, and then working on those wounds for the purpose of healing. so that you can be one, the best person, your best self, and then so you can be a better parent, a better lover, a better spouse, a better friend, a better aunt, a better of whatever it is that you are right now. But it comes with the understanding that things happen to you as a kid. These things happen to you at the hands of your mother, your superwoman, and that you can move on. You don't have to live there in these wounds. You can move on from these things. And that's the knowledge that I'm grateful for, that these things have happened to me, that I have grown and learned from them, and now I can move on. But you can't move on in your life, Sharad, without addressing the the things that have gotten you to this place where you are right now. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So that's my verdict though. That's my verdict. All of that I just said, y'all, is my verdict. Um, but what I would like though is I would like to have a conversation with our viewers about their mother wounds. Like, at what point did you recognize that you had these wounds?
Or do you
Or
even know?
did you even know? Did your recognition happen today from this podcast? And then what happens after that? I want to know, like, because like a lot of the time we be on an island by ourselves, or we think that we are. But these are experiences that are not singular to us, to just us.
Right.
There's people in the world experiencing the same things that we have experienced. You know, a lot of the times, especially with neglected children, we think it's just us, but it's not. And I think all of us, especially at this big grown age, can benefit from a conversation about how we have been hurt and how we have healed, or how we can heal. So if you want to have that conversation, you can either put it in the comments, or you can send it to us at virgoverdict@gmail.com. If you want to talk in depth, if you have questions, you can hit us up either of those ways, but also like, share, and subscribe. So, Sharad, what is your verdict?
Um, um, I'll make it really simple. I think that in our community, black men lie too much. And we get up here
Okay.
and we lie about our moms or whatever. Well, I ain't gonna say we, because I don't lie. My mom is who she is. The hood know my mom. You know, when they like,
Okay.
hey, how's Miss Ernestine? The same. Oh, damn. So I'm gonna tell you the truth about my mom. I love her to death. You know, hey, I kill a brick for my mom. Everybody know how I go with me and my brothers as it pertains to that woman. But at the same time, I've listened to so many black men get up here and say all these fantastic lies. You know, it's like there's nothing wrong with mom, this, and it's like, and I, being that I've gone through some things and I've seen some things, and I think a lot of black men, especially, pander to women for two reasons: to either enrich themselves or somehow subconsciously protect their mothers from the things that other men may say about these women that they saw
Mm-hmm.
their mama doing. Because I know
Mm-hmm.
for a fact, when I used to go to certain people's houses and certain women, there's just dudes coming in and out, and their sons are looking at this shit.
Yes.
But they suppressed it.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was great. No, she wasn't, bro. Your mom was a hoe. You know, but guess what? That ain't for me to say. That's yo. And I know she didn't treat you good. And it's like we try to create this image of a person that we wanted them to be
Mm-hmm.
instead of who they
Exactly.
actually are.
Yes.
And my brothers and I, you know, my older brother, he passed away, and my sister, she would say that my mom favored my older brother and my younger brother.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know, she would say, "Hey, we're the darkies, right? We're the dark ones." And when I look back, when my brother died, My mom did too.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, and I've told her that, and I've come to grips with it. And I came to grips with the favoritism thing years ago. I was a kid when I saw that. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, hey, it is what it is. But I think what helped with that part of knowing that my brothers were the prize in my mother's eyes, was that our relationship was just at that time was just so great. You know,
Mm.
unfortunately, my younger brother and I, we don't speak anymore, and now my older brother, he passed away, and he was the one person that no matter what I wanted to talk about, we can go as intellectually as deep down that rabbit hole, you know, that I wanted to go, or it could be as silly as whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And when he left, now that dynamic is gone, where I have somebody that I can just really just spew things out. and
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, no, when he first left, the reaction from my mother was like, she didn't know how to do anything.
Mm.
I had to take care of everything. It was like she was just lost. Like, wow. And it's like,
Mm.
and she's still there. She's
Wow.
still in that same position. And I understand, hey, that's the, no parent wants to bury their child.
I can't even imagine it.
I don't want to, you know,
Yeah.
and especially in the
Yeah.
manner where we found him dead, right? So
Mm.
the thing is, black men, black community, let's stop lying. Because I think the mental capacity, or the mental trauma that we've suffered in this community, outside of the racism and all that, no, we got some inside trauma too.
Oh,
We have a
yes.
lot of inner traumas that we haven't spoke on, or we don't want anybody to know about, or whatever, and we have to address them. So my Virgo verdict is, hey man,
Yes.
let's be honest. Let's hold people accountable, no matter who they are, moms, pops, ourselves, and then let's have that conversation. Let's open it up.
Yes, absolutely. As a community, we could benefit from it, from that kind of
Yeah,
healing. Because, if we each concentrate on our own individual healing, then I think as a community that, that collective healing will change the trajectory
yeah.
of how we move around in the world as a community,
And
as
as we're
Black folks.
and how we're seen as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, y'all. So that has been our verdict. Tell us yours. Again, like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, peace.
Peace.